If your wife is saying, hey, yeah, you're a nice guy, well, that might not be a compliment. Man, if you're anything like me, I am a recovering nice guy. And if you haven't read that book by Dr. Robert Glover, No More Mr. Nice Guy, that is one of the best books out there. And it's for all of us guys who do things because we're chasing, because we're needy, because we're kind of desperate, because at the end of the day, what we're really trying to ask ourselves is, am I good enough? Am I attractive enough? Do I make enough money? Am I good enough in bed? Am I enough for these kids? Am I a good enough dad? And a lot of what we do is through validation. So we're just overly nice because we so badly want that stamp of approval. And if you're anything like me, guys, man, like, trust me, I get it. I spent about 3.5 decades there. So you're in the right place if any of this rings true, because yours truly, like, hey, and I think there's that nice guy in all of us. So gents, welcome to the Dad Edge podcast. As you guys know, I'm Larry Hagner. I'm your host and founder of this podcast show and movement, and I am not only the founder of this thing, but I'm also a client for those of you guys who are old enough to remember the Hair Club for Men, right? Oh my gosh, I still remember that guy. Like, not only am I the president and CEO, but I'm also a client. And then the guy holds up a photo of him when he was like bald and he's got like this full head of hair. But I think there's that nice guy in all of us. So welcome back, guys. This is part 3 of a 4-part series. And if you're here, what we're going to be talking about is the power of attracting your wife and not chasing, which, by the way, is way more fun, way more fulfilling when we attract our wives back in and we're not chasing with that needy, desperate energy. We're not doing the dishes because we want a little something, something. We're not cleaning the countertops because we want a little kiss on the cheek or a pat on the back of an attaboy, or we come in from a hard day's work and she's like, oh, just thank you so much for working so hard. Like, when we're really looking for those things, trust me when I say, and I've learned from experience, you would think that I would figure that out, or many of us would figure that out after like the thousands of times that thing falls flat. But sometimes there's like that deep-seated need in us that we just like want to be good enough. And to be honest, a lot of this kind of stems from childhood. A lot of this stems, from we desperately wanted like approval from our parents and maybe we didn't get it. Or maybe we had an absent father, who wasn't in the picture. Or maybe we had a father who was there, but nothing was ever good enough, right? So we constantly chased, that feeling, am I enough for my parents or whatever else? And that, unfortunately, shows up in our most intimate relationships as a husband. And I got to tell you, it is, for lack of a better word, it's quite repulsive to our wives. And they probably can't even tell you why. They just look at it as, why are you so insecure? And let's talk about that for a second. Why is insecurity, such a thing that's unattractive, especially for a woman? Insecurity for a woman equals unsafety for a woman, right? If we don't have confidence and certainty in ourselves, well, why would she, right? A woman needs to feel that we are the rock, right? That we are the anchor. Now, granted, we're human beings. We're going to have bad days. We're going to have good days. We're going to have highs. We're going to have lows. Our life does feel like a roller coaster. What our wives are looking for us to be is steady, calm. Those types of things really attract our wives back in, because really what they need from us most is emotional safety. That is like, I'm just going to say this for what it is, but emotional safety to your wife is just as attractive as your wife walking around in lingerie around the house. You're like, oh, that's amazing. That's the best thing ever, right? And that is the same for her with us. Like, she finds that most appealing, most attractive, right? And many of us guys, including me, for years, get this wrong. And by the way, there's still times when this like kind of shows up for me. And I'll be really real with you guys. Like, there are some times like where my wife and I might be a little disconnected, and this sounds nuts, me saying this out loud, and it's just, I kind of like, to be honest, like when I hear myself say this, I'm like, for God's sake, Larry, like, do you not get it yet? Like, you've been married to this woman for 22 years. You guys got a great relationship. Like, she always tells you she loves you. She shows you she loves you. The audio matches the video. She's walking the walk. She's talking the talk. Like, it's all there. And there's this part of me, maybe it's coming from my childhood, like, because my childhood was really chaotic. If you know anything about my childhood, there really wasn't a dad around. And when there was, it was chaotic. And I grew up with a mom who battled a lot of things. And And there was a lot of uncertainty and unpredictability in my house. And I kind of always felt like I walked on eggshells. So like I was always that kid that just towed the line or tried to be good or tried to do whatever I possibly could to make sure everything was steady at home. And for a lot of us, that's how we grew up. And when we grow up like that, that's how we operate in our marriages. Like it has to be steady, like no matter what. And we constantly need reassurance that that steadiness is there, that certainty is there. So how it would show up for me is like, this is so embarrassing, but it's like, why do you love me? Like I'll just, I laugh at that out loud when I say that from a very secure place, that where I normally sit at now. But there are times where I'm insecure and I'm uncertain and I'm wondering like, man, am I doing a good job? And I'll look for the evidence out there and I'll see it out there. But sometimes I just need that little extra reassurance. And I'll ask my wife, I'm like, hey, why do you love me? Or you still love me, right? And my wife will just look at me and just give me this big smile and shake her head. And she's like, oh my gosh, so insecure sometimes, right? And I'm like, that's attractive. And I'm very playful with my wife. I'm like, that's attractive, right? She's like, yeah, no, not at all. We're very honest with each other. I think that's one of our claim to fames. But anyway, if you're here, where this is a 4-part series. In week 1, what we talked about was resentment and how that just sort of sneaks its way into our marriages, right? And if you really look at resentment, I'm working with actually a handful of couples right now. May or may not know, I do have one-on-one clients. Lately, I've been working with a lot of couples. And one of the things that I'm taking my couples through is trying to eradicate that resentment that sets seed in our relationship. So like, think of it like this. If your relationship was like 2 flowers in a garden, okay, the soil is like the foundation, right? That's the love, that's the respect, that's the appreciation. This is her feeling seen, heard, and safe. This is you feeling appreciated, respected, you getting physical affection and all that good stuff. If there's resentment in that soil, those needs tend to go unfulfilled because of the resentment on both sides. Both parties are not really willing to fulfill the other person's needs. We actually become more self-centered, more self-protected, because we resent the other person because we're trying to protect ourselves. So we don't really fulfill someone else's needs. And what happens is in that resentment cycle is that soil tends to get really, really bad. And it's really hard to grow beautiful flowers, in tarnished bad soil, if that makes sense. So it's all that week 1 was all about how resentment sort of leaks in and what to do about it. Week 2 was something that I just learned about a year ago from a gentleman by the name of Zach Watson, who is an invisible labor coach, invisible labor and cognitive mental load. And until I met Zach Watson, he was on the podcast quite some time ago, I had no idea what the heck those things even meant. But here's what invisible labor is. Think of the 10,000 things that you do on a daily basis in your job or what you do for a living, and all the stress that you carry and all the battles that you face. And she probably knows 2% of that stuff, maybe 5% of that stuff, but you're carrying it. So it's like invisible labor, and it's called cognitive mental load. Now for our wives, perhaps she has a job, right? And you maybe only know 5 to 10% of what's going on in her day and all the load that she's carrying and all the stress she's carrying in that job and the things she has to do. Invisible labor also shows up as the dishes that are in the sink, the kids that have to go to practice, who's doing that, who's doing this, the laundry basket that's still full that hasn't been folded. It's our beard hairs that are in the sink. It's her makeup stuff that's all over the sink everywhere. Like there's like 98 bottles of things I think that women put on their face. I don't really know. But that's like invisible labor. It's all these little things that we see that we know that like, okay, that's got to get done. That's got to get clean. This bill's got to get paid. This kid's got to get there. Okay, we got this, we got that. And it's like ping pong balls that are just flying around in our head, and it tends to stress us out. When both of us carry invisible labor, what that does is it packs on that cognitive mental load, and then we feel overwhelmed, and we take that overwhelmed energy into our marriages. So that's what we talked about in week 2. So week 3, in my personal opinion, way more fun. We're talking about the masculine pull, right? So leading with strength and not submission, because that's what a nice guy will do. And this magnetic masculinity. Now, I use that term very, very cautiously, because there's a lot of people out there that think the term like masculinity, alpha male, all these different things is like really toxic and really horrible. in my personal opinion, this is my perspective on it, masculinity and being an alpha male, right, is not the gym bro that beats on his chest and, yeah, I worked all day, you gotta cook dinner like that. That's not what I'm talking about. In my personal opinion, masculinity is calm, confident, safe, creating space for our wives, being playful with our kids, being patient with our kids, being empathetic, being a kind man, but also being a dangerous man when you need to be, because part of being a masculine man is also having to protect, right, our kids physically, mentally, and emotionally, protecting our wives. And sometimes that's protecting them from us. And what I mean by that is our reactions, our outbursts. So a masculine man is a calm man, a patient man, a man who can meet a woman's emotional needs. And by doing so, the attractiveness actually comes from without having that agenda, without having that validation, without me having to ask my wife, why do you still love me? Right? Why do you still love me? Like I make myself sick when I even ask that. And there are times where I'm just like, for some reason, I feel like I really need to ask this, and I'm going to do it anyway because I really need to know. And what I know is it's really unattractive to her, but sometimes I do it anyway. I mean, luckily I do it rare, but like I still do it. So maybe you can like learn from my idiotic mistakes and just don't do that. So what we're going to be talking about today is number one, my first talking point for you guys today is number one is the difference between pleasing and pursuing. Okay, between pleasing and pursuing. So there's a huge difference between approval seeking and pursuing. So like, for instance, if I don't know why, but I always think of like chores, and that's probably because one of my wife's love languages is acts of service. And I cannot remember what the percentage is out there, guys, for the percentage of women out there where one of those two primary love languages is acts of service. I think it's in the 70 percentile. But then again, I've also heard 82% of people that quote a statistic make it up. So don't take my word for it. But I think I have heard that about 70% of women, one of the two primary love languages out of the 5 is acts of service. Now, you don't want to bank on that. You actually want to make sure that is correct. But so for my wife, so maybe I'm one of the, it's one of those times we'll talk about the old Larry, like Larry 1.0, like super needy, super nice guy-ish, everything had an agenda of validation. Am I good enough? Am I attractive enough? Like all that fun stuff, right? And by the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about when you need the validation, I'm sure you guys have never done this. I know I have, but I'm sure no one in the audience has ever done this except for me. But you just get done having sex with your wife and you look over and you're like, that was good, right? You good? Yeah, that was good. Even though you know that she had a great time because you could tell, all the stars aligned, if you know what I mean. I'm not going to go into detail on that one, but you know I'm talking about. But yet still, like, it's like, it was good, right? Good? Like, that was good? Because it's like we want to know, like, that was like, I pleased you, right? Like, I made sure, like, you were 100% pleased. And it's like, we need that validation more than she does, right? And that's really unattractive. So, but I'm sure I'm the only guy on the planet who's ever done that. So there's that. So approval seeking, let's talk about that again. So I always go back to kind of like doing the dishes. And here's the thing. I never understood why my wife like just kind of like rolled her eyes at this. And it's because like, she knew, she was the wiser. She knew what I was doing. So like I would, before I'd be like, man, it's been a while since me and Jessica have had a little action, right? Kids have been keeping us busy. There's been very little time for adult time. So I know the way to her heart. I know how I'm going to have some fun tonight, and I'll do the dishes. And I used to go over to the dishwasher, do the dishes, that full sink. And I'd be scrubbing those dishes, man. I'd be making sure that I made a lot of noise, like, oh, the plates are clinging together, all the silverware, like putting that in the dishwasher, like extra loud, right? So she could hear it. And then after I get done, I'd take out the trash, right? And I made sure like the trash can, as I pull the plastic bag out of that stainless steel trash can, that it would be like pop, 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 like that. She could hear it. And I might even like, I accidentally hit the wall with the bag on the way out. So I made that, noise. So she knew what I was doing stuff. Maybe I'd be like sweeping the floors, right? And make sure I hit that that broom and that floor kind of extra hard so she could hear me sweeping. And then I'm laughing at this now, but I didn't then. But then I sit down and be like, yeah, so I finished the dishes and I took out the trash and I swept up the floors. Like, was that helpful? And my wife would just smile at me and be like, yeah, it was very helpful. Like almost, and here's the thing, she'd view me as like a man child, like I'm doing her a favor. And really what I was doing was my job, right? I'm half of the team in this family. And here's what I'll tell you now, I don't do the dishes because I want a little something. I do the dishes because I'm part of this 6-person team now. I take out the trash because I'm part of the team. I'm her partner. I take out the trash. I pull weeds in the landscaping because this is my house, right? I vacuum the floors because this is my house, not because I want to get into my wife's drawers, right? So there's a big difference between doing something for an agenda and validation. And by the way, they have spidey senses on this and they know it. Are you doing it because you want an outcome? Or are you doing it because you're part of the team? If you're doing it for the outcome, sniff, sniff, she sniffs it a mile away. She really, really does. They're actually way smarter than us when it comes to this stuff. But when we're doing it from a place of, it's because I'm the man. It's because I live here. It's because that's what I do. Then it's no longer an agenda. It's no longer something that I want or validation or that attaboy, good job. It is because I live here. Period. That's it. And here's the interesting thing. The validation that we so desperately want, it actually comes from exactly that place that I just described. Knowing that when I do the dishes, I'm doing the dishes because I live here. I'm doing the dishes because it's part of my job. I'm doing the dishes because I'm also setting an example for my young men that I'm raising, that a man helps. A man does not prop his feet up on the couch and watch Netflix while everybody else does the work that he doesn't want to do. A man pitches in. A man gets his hands dirty, period. And when we do it from a place like that, that is the difference between pursuing, or I would say not even pursuing, but attracting versus pleasing and all that needy energy. Here's the other one too. We talked about this very, very briefly. I talked about this very briefly early on in the show, but what is masculinity versus anxious attachment? Masculine energy is presence. It's calm. It's like grounded energy. I mean, have you guys ever had a conversation with another man who wasn't anxious, fidgety, uncertain, not very confident, but he came from this place of like just whole kind of power, like just wholesome power. And I'm not saying overpowering, over domineering, in your face, just like, yeah, man, talk to me. What's going on? Yeah, man, I hear you. Like, tell me more about that. Yeah, man, when I was in your situation, I totally get it because I did X, Y, and Z. Versus like, what do you mean you did that? I can't believe you did that. What's wrong with you? You can't do that. No. Here's how we get it done. Right? Now, there might be a time and a place for that, but guess what? That's not attractive to our wives. That's not an attractive trait in our marriages. A masculine man is calm, patient, grounded. He's okay with big emotions coming at him. In fact, he wants them. He welcomes them. And what I mean by big emotions, maybe your wife is overwhelmed at something, not at you or yelling at you. I'm not talking about this. This is where I think a lot of us nice guys, and I say us because I'm there too, a lot of us nice guys, we get really, really tripped up on this because when really big emotions come our way, we kind of want to shut them down because they're really big emotions and they feel really big to us. So what do? We want to fix the problem because we're anxious about it, because we want to fix it, because when we fix it, it goes away. Versus creating space for someone to just have their own emotional experience and for us to just kind of hold that space for them. And that's a masculine man, in my opinion. A man that can do that very lovingly, very compassionately, right? Now, let's talk about anxious attachment for a minute. And anxious attachment, it was a perfect example of what I just gave you guys, which is, why do you still love me? Are you still love me, right? Or are we okay? Are we okay? Is everything okay between us? So it's okay to obviously ask, is everything all right between us? But if we come with that energy of anxiousness, that doesn't come from a place of masculinity. It comes from a place of anxiety. And anxiety for a woman feels very uncertain. It feels very unsafe. And if we're uncertain and safe, then she's going to feel the same way and she's not going to be attracted to us. So let me give you an example of this. So I used to ask my wife, hey, we're okay, right? We're okay, right? Is everything okay between us? Can you feel that? I'm sure you're having maybe even a visceral reaction just hearing that in my voice, like just that tone in my voice. It just sounds kind of nasty. It just sounds kind of like, I don't really like that as a guy. Now, if I were to go to my wife and say, hey, I'm sensing that there might be some tension between us. And if there is, I'd really like to talk about it. So I'm just asking, is there any tension between us that we need to talk about? That's a very different way of approaching, are we okay? Is everything all right? That's a way of leading. That's a way of entering into a conversation with calm. That's a way of entering into a conversation with confidence. And it's very, very different than that anxious attachment. So if you need to do a check-in, make sure it comes from a place that we're grounded, right? I have to remind myself of this, guys. I do. I teach this stuff, but I also have to remind myself of this stuff too. But make sure you're coming from a place that we, not you, we, us, me, you, we are coming from a place of calm, right? Of confidence. Grounded energy is really what we want. And if you're not there and you want to go have that conversation, I highly encourage you to go do that. Go get that somewhere else. One example that I use, so like sunlight and a walk, even for just 15 minutes, does my mind, my soul, my emotions tremendous good. It just calms me down, right? If I go to the gym, that is the kryptonite for anxiety for me. Go start pushing around heavy weight, that anxiety starts to dissipate, just getting that energy out, right? Then I can think more clearly. That brain fog and all that stuff, that anxious energy just doesn't feel as heavy anymore when I'm doing something like that. So maybe something after that, like go do some burpees, go do some push-ups, meditate if that's your thing, pray if that's your thing, go talk to a trusted mentor or friend if that's your thing, go for a walk out in the sunlight if that's your thing. Doing something to just get grounded is really, really important. So here's another one as well. Rebuilding polarity and why attraction kind of dies when the roles get blurred. So let's just talk about this. And by the way, when I first started doing research on masculine and feminine energy, I really was kind of like, this is so woo-woo. Like I'm kind of a science guy. I got a degree in health and sports medicine and a minor in nutrition. So I'm like super geeky with data and logic and science and that kind of thing. But there is truth to masculine and feminine energy. So like, for instance, a man, like a masculine trait is getting tasks done, right? And like, so for instance, think of it like this. If you view yourself, you and your wife and your family as like, okay, and your house is the castle. You're the king, she's the queen. The king is in charge of the protection around that castle, like building the moat, right? Protecting it from any enemies, quote unquote, what ifs, right? Taking care of the bills, taking care of maybe the money, the providing and all that good stuff that happens. Basically building like this impenetrable fortress around his castle to protect his family. So a man is a hunter-gatherer. That's how we're wired. A man is one of those types of people that were very task-driven. And if you don't believe me, if you're one of those kind of guys who like loves to just cross things off as tasks, like you actually get like a hit of dopamine when you cross a couple things off. You're like, yeah, yep, I'm getting it done. Look at that, look at that. Well, that's a masculine trait. Now, on the flip side, if your wife is in her masculine, then she is more like, I am building the fortress within the castle. And what does that look like? That looks more like a little bit more comfort, a little bit more warmth, right? The emotional protection, right? The affection, like all of these things that allow a woman to enter into her feminine because she's providing what she's wired for, which is that warmth and that comfort. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that women don't work. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying from an instinctual point of view, that's how a woman gets into her feminine. This is why when a woman gets dressed up and goes out with you on a date and she puts on her makeup and she looks nice and she's taking time, she's actually creating that emotional warmth to connect with you. And that's what puts her into her feminine. This is why a lot of our wives, when she's task oriented all day long, like she's getting things done, she's got to make this appointment, pay this bill, she's, getting this meal ready. She's doing this with the kids, doing that, like task, do. This is why when you go to make an advance with a mom who's a stay-at-home mom or a woman who stays home in the middle of the day, and she's like, wait, what are you doing? Like, what, I haven't even thought about this yet. It's because she's in her masculine. So like those roles get a little blurred. She's doing, right? Which is fine. That's part of her job, but that's what's going on for her. Now the lines really get blurred here. And, when we stop leading and we allow her to make all the decisions. And by the way, before you take that one too far, where do you want to go to dinner? I don't care. Wherever you want to go to eat. Well, I don't really care. Where do you want to go? I don't really care. Well, do you want to go to this Mexican place or do you want to go to an Italian place? And our answer is, I don't care. Wherever you want to go. So we don't make decisions as a man, right? And what our wives really want is for us to be a decision maker. I am not saying that you are a bull in a china shop and you make every decision. It's my way or the highway. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is we lead, right? So like, for instance, 2 different ways to ask my wife out on a date. And I think you could probably guess which one she really, really, really finds attractive. So I could say, hey, are we busy on Friday? And her first thought is, well, dum-dum, why haven't you looked at the calendar, right? Like, just look at the calendar. Like, why do I have to manage all this? That's not what she's saying, but a lot of times that's how it lands for her. It's cognitive load, right? She's like, I have to think through that. I don't know. She's like, well, I don't know. Maybe, why? And I was like, well, I was kind of thinking, maybe we could go out to dinner. Okay, well, who's going to watch the kids? I don't know. Who do you think should watch the kids? We could have either Ethan or Mason, or maybe we get somebody. Like, who do you think it should be? And she's like, well, I don't know. Okay, well, I was thinking like, okay, well, we'll find a babysitter. Well, where do you want to go? And she's like, well, I really don't know. I haven't even given it much thought. Well, well, let's go anywhere you want. Yeah, we can go anywhere you want. Wherever you want is totally cool. Like, yeah. Now that's one way to ask your wife. Another way to ask your wife is, hey, so I checked the calendar on Friday night. I noticed that there was nothing on the calendar. I checked mine and I checked the family calendar and there's nothing there. I asked all the boys, made sure they had nothing going on and there's not. So I'm taking you out on a date and I've already got the babysitter. Ethan said he's going to watch the boys. So we've got from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. I made reservations at this really killer place. And she might be like, where are you going? Don't worry about it. Just be ready to go by 5:30. And oh, by the way, the dress code, the place we're going to, it's totally fine if you wear jeans and one of your really cool white t-shirts. It's not a fancy place, but it's a nice place. But that's really it. And then we're going to do something really fun after that. So what are we doing? I don't know. I do know, but all you have to worry about is be ready by 5:30. Now, which one do you think she liked? I took the masculine role, right, of making the decision, taking the lead. I allowed her to enter into her feminine, which is courting her, dating her, and just allowing her to step into her feminine, just be ready by a certain time. All the other logistics were planned. That to a woman is way more attractive than a man who wants to basically give the entire date, everything that we're doing over to her, right? Because that's not attractive to our wives. Now, I'm not saying we do that every single time, that we are the decision makers, it's our call. But what I will tell you, the times that we do that, it's really attractive to them. So the other thing too, here's what I want you guys to do. This week, I really want you to think about how you're showing up, right? Are you doing things for validation? Are you doing things for agenda? Are you doing things because you want something? Are you doing things because I just want her to notice or see all the things I'm doing, or all the work I'm doing, or I want her to appreciate me for all these other things, so I'm doing them. When we go about doing things like that, it's not very fulfilling, number one, for us, and it certainly isn't attractive to her. We do these things just simply because we do them. And we would probably do them if we were married to her or not. We'd probably be doing them if we were married to somebody else. And we'd probably be doing them if we were single. So why not just do them, right? I'm not saying that you have to, because a lot of guys will listen to podcasts or messages and they just go into like a crazy extreme. We're like, oh, so okay, Larry, what you're saying is I have to do everything around the house, like everything, and just bow to her wishes. No. What I'm saying is do your part. And when you're doing your part, make sure it comes from a place of not expectation, not agenda, not validation, not an attaboy, but just because you're the man. Just because that's what we do. That's what we do. Like, if you can learn anything from this dum-dum, from this knucklehead who's talking to you, who got it wrong I've been married for 22 years, got it wrong for well over half that time, still slip into a bear trap of that every now and again. Luckily, not as much. Just by doing this work, by the way, that doesn't mean you're immune to mistakes. That doesn't mean you're not going to fall back into old habits every now and again. The most important thing is when you do step into that old habit is that you step right back out again. You're like, oh crap, step into that. Okay, right back out again. The other thing too is keep really close tabs on your role as the man, right? In that masculine energy. Remember, masculine energy is calm. It's patient. It's grounded. It's like, come in and have a conversation with me. I can handle your big emotions just fine, right? I don't need to fix your problems, but I do need to be an incredible listener, right? Also, allow her, now that you know about feminine energy and how she kind of gets into her feminine, which is more of that emotional stuff, you probably maybe have a greater understanding of when your wife is in do, go mode. All she wants to do is like, I just need to take a breath for a second. I just need to breathe for a minute. Because for her, that's how she enters back into her feminine energy. So, gents, I'm going to have a couple of links in the show notes for you guys that I think are great resources for you with this whole marriage thing. One is 21 Days to an Extraordinary Marriage. And that is, that's just an email series for you that just will give you some bare basics. It'll even have just little to-dos in there, just little tasks that, like, once you read the email, you can go do them, right? You can just go be like, oh, okay, well, I just had a light bulb moment. One is going home and asking your wife a very different question than how was your day? And then asking her instead a different question that will elicit a different response and then how to even respond to that, to have another, basically to have a launching pad for a beautiful conversation. But there are 15 emails in that email series just for you. And each email will give you just a nugget and just some things that you can do differently in your marriage that don't overhaul the marriage overnight, but you can at least try them on. So I'll have that in the show notes. Again, that's 21 Days to an Extraordinary Marriage. The other link that I'll have in the show notes for you guys as well is 25 intimate conversation starters. A lot of us have a hard time trying to generate conversations with our wives, especially if we've been married for any amount of time. Sometimes it's only 3 years and we're like, man, have we talked about everything? Nope, you haven't. For some guys, it's a decade. For me, it's 2 decades and 2 years. And what I'll tell you is, being married to Jessica for over 20 years, we've never once run out of things to talk about. In fact, the one thing, I just wrote my wife a note. She left for out of town a couple weeks ago. She was gone for 12 days. I put a note in her makeup bag. I just hid it in there, and I knew she wasn't going to see it right away. She's probably going to see it like the next day or something when she got to her place. But I told her in that note, it was like a 3-page note, but one thing I told her was I feel like I get to fall in love with you over and over and over and over and over again. And a lot of that comes from the conversations that we have. And we can't have a beautiful conversation without an intimate conversation starter. And for a lot of us, including me for so long, I didn't know how to start that conversation. So I've made that resource just for you guys. There's actually a quick video training on it, but it's 25 intimate conversation starters. I'll have those in the show notes for you as well. So if you guys head on over to thedadedge.com/Friday213 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/Friday213 for this show. I'll have all the links in there too. And as we head out of here today, I'm going to ask you guys a favor. As you guys know, if you've been listening to the Wednesday show now for the past couple weeks, I now have Ethan as my co-host, my oldest son. It's a father and son podcast. And I'll tell you, the most, out of 1,400 episodes of these podcasts, the most powerful episodes I've ever done is with my own son. You talk about teaching moments. This kid is blowing my mind, teaching me on the podcast, and it's just incredible. I know it would mean a lot to him and a lot to me if you would support the show, and the show is obviously free. It would mean a great deal to me and him if you head on over to Apple and leave us a 5-star review, or you head over to Spotify or wherever you listen to this podcast and leave us a review. Maybe even mention his name. If you really like what Ethan's doing on those Wednesday shows, mention his name. That would mean the world to that kid, or that young man, I should say, and it would mean the world to the show. So, gents, from my heart to yours, thank you so much for all the support, and go out and live legendary. Take care.